This is a term I came up with many years ago to describe this fundamentally important key technique of mass manipulation. And it's a problem reaction solution is another way of saying ordo ab chaos, which is the 33rd degree of Freemason motto, which translates as order out of chaos. What you do is you create a problem covertly and you blame someone else for it. You tell the people the version of the problem you want through an unquestioning mainstream media who just repeats it without question or research. You want the people at stage 2 in fear, reptilian brain, primitive emotional responses, through fear and outrage, basically either say, something must be done, what are you going to do about it, which allows those who created the problem covertly and got that reaction to openly make changes in legislation to push the agenda on, or you get people thinking, I don't really want this to happen, but it's the only thing that we could do in these circumstances. I've heard it while I've been here, 3 days. We've got to join the European Union in Croatia because we got no choice. We never have no choice. Never. We have choices we'd like to make, choices we wouldn't like to make, and whatever, but we never have no choice. The idea that we have no choice is one of the great manipulations. Well, I had no choice. Cop out. Anyway, the Second World War. Thank you. I'll get into the European Union and Croatia, but not very long. It's very important. This is the problem reaction solution of the Second World War. They controlled Soviet communism. In fact, they created it through Lenin and Trotsky and all these people. They controlled the so-called capitalist West. They controlled Nazi fascism. They put the Nazi party into power. And then they brought them into conflict in the Second World War, which was a massive problem. And then to offer the solution so that we never have another war again like that, they created the United Nations, the European Union. One of the justifications for which was if we trade together, we won't fight. We had the Bretton Woods Agreement with the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank that followed and all this stuff. And it was justified by the Second World War, which was a problem reaction solution. One of the key people that funded the Nazis, so they became the power they were in the Second World War just a few years after the Weimar Republic collapsed amid fantastic inflation, was the Bush family in America. Prescott Bush, the boy Bush's grandfather, he was a major executive in a company called the Union Banking Corporation, which was owned by the Harriman family, another one of these bloodlines in America. And it interfaced with the banking and steel empire of a guy called Fritz Thyssen in Europe, and they funneled money from the Union Banking Corporation in America through to Thyssen, and he was acknowledged, of course, as one of the major funders of Hitler, because the money came from America. The Ernst Rudin, Hitler's race purity expert, had a whole floor of a German university for his research, paid for by the Rockefeller family. There are no borders with the Illuminati. They just do what's necessary to bring about the problems that they can offer the solutions to. And as a result of the Second World War, of course, the world changed fantastically everywhere. Now, there's another version of it now called no problem reaction solution. Example, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, where you don't need a real problem, you just need to sell the perception of one, like global warming. And Al Gore. By the way, there's one thing I've learned over the years about Al Gore, many things I've learned, but one key thing. If Al Gore is involved, it's a scam. And therefore, global warming's a scam. And when you start to see that 31,000 scientists have now signed a document saying there is nothing to justify the hysteria about global warming, you know you're starting to make some progress. Now, what we've had in America is a presidential version of problem reaction solution unfold before our eyes in the last few years. George Bush was brought in only as a frontman to create massive problems with military excursions abroad and invasions and all the rest of it. And also towards the end, right on cue of his presidency, massive economic collapse, which is far worse than they're telling because they have something else in store along those lines. Now, what they then did was bring in this man who came from nowhere, like Haley did, Barack Obama, a total con man who's involved with some real despicable pieces of work, not least a guy called Tony Rezko, a slum landlord who's now in jail for fraud, who was one of his major fundraisers through his political career. And he was brought forward and sold extraordinarily well to a gullible public as like the new broom sweeping clean. They had the big smile and all the rest of it. And his job is to come in, of course he got elected because he wasn't George Bush. I mean, you know, everyone had a chance going against after 8 years of Bush. And his job is to sell the solutions to the problems that Bush brought about. And those solutions, and we're seeing them by the day now, if you follow my website headlines, etc., and others, as the agenda is introduced by this guy. Hope-gnosis. Hope. What a waste of time hope is. It's like going round on a carousel horse hoping you'll catch up with the one in front. Because hope's always in the future, isn't it? It's never in the now. I hope things will get better. I'm going to accept this shite now because I hope things will get better. No, I want change now, thank you very much. Bugger your hope, I'll have it now, thank you. Let's get moving. So he's sold this idea, and they did it brilliantly. It was a big mind control operation. If you notice, at no point in that entire year of campaigning against Hillary Clinton and John McCain did he once give any detail about what he meant by change, hope, and something to believe in. Nothing. So what they did was create an empty screen on which the people were projecting their version of what that meant upon him, so he became all things to all men and women. Because he represented what hope, believe, and change meant to them, because he never articulated it. If he had, and he said, what I really believe is what he's doing now, he wouldn't have got elected. Change. It's all mind control, look. You put it in the subconscious, subliminal, change, change. Don't say anything. As the Nazis said, make the lie big, make it simple, keep saying it, and eventually they will believe it. Adolf Hitler. Make the lie big, make it simple, keep saying it, and eventually they will believe it. Exactly the same thing was played. If it works, why change it? I found this, I thought this was very appropriate to Obama. The wolf found that Shepard's clothing worked even better. That's what it is. He's a fraud. He's a fraud and a shyster on every kind of level you can imagine. And the people that have brought him to power are people from one of the most corrupt political systems in the world, Chicago. And if you're not corrupt or acceptable to the corrupt, you have no way of making progress politically in Chicago. This guy soared from nothing because he represents the same cabal that the Bush family did. One of his handlers or mentors and key advisors on foreign policy is Zbigniew Brzezinski, Jimmy Carter's national security advisor, who admitted a few years ago in a Paris magazine interview that as doing that job with Carter, he funded and trained freedom fighters in Afghanistan to undermine the cabal government that was then controlled by the Soviet Union. And he let the Soviet Union know that he and America were doing it to try to entice the Soviet Union to invade Afghanistan, to give them, in his words, Brzezinski, their Vietnam. Eventually, they bit and they invaded, as you remember, Afghanistan, and 1 million Afghans died as a result of that invasion. He saw no problem with that in the interview because it weakened another superpower. No empathy. Actually, as the Mujahideen, and then he brought, the people that followed him brought, the Reagan-Bush administration, brought over a frontman called bin Laden from Saudi Arabia to front up the Mujahideen and their resistance to the Soviet Union occupation, and eventually they became the Taliban and what is now claimed, although it's a major exaggeration, Al-Qaeda. And ironically, he's come to power with his backing and mentorship, and he's now massively increasing the number of troops in Afghanistan because he wants to beat the Taliban that started out from this guy in terms of the the violence that has followed. He is a CIA frontman. No wonder they haven't found him. And Brzezinski is obsessed with this part of the world he calls Eurasia, around the Caspian Sea, where there's massive gas and oil reserves. And look who's around there. Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, which America wants to start a real conflict there, which leads into China because they want a third world war involving China, Russia, Europe, and America. And all these other countries are all in this area, which Brzezinski has been writing about for years, calls it Eurasia, and he says you have to control that, basically, if you're going to control the world. Here is one of the major Illuminati frontmen of the last 50 years. Mr. Change has just appointed him an advisor. And then, a few weeks ago, the National Security Advisor to Obama, James L. Jones, an official position, spoke at this conference on security policy in Munich, and he says this about someone who's just a backroom kind of advisor, Kissinger. Thank you for that wonderful tribute to Henry Kissinger yesterday. Congratulations. As the most recent National Security Advisor of the United States, I take my daily orders from Dr. Kissinger, filtered down through General Brent Scrowcroft, who's an underling of Kissinger, and Sandy Berger, who is also here. We have a chain of command in the National Security Council that exists today. So, how many people in America know that Kissinger is controlling foreign policy and national security? Now, this guy Brzezinski, Obama's kind of mentor and control figure, created this organization called the Trilateral Commission with this infamous reptilian bloodline, the Rockefellers, that guy David Rockefeller. And he's now a major player in Mr. Change's administration. Now, this is where the Trilateral Commission fits in. It's a series of organizations around this secret society, the Round Table, which was created in Britain in the latter part of the 1800s. And its first head was a guy called Cecil Rhodes. And over the years, these different organizations have been added to this network. The Trilateral Commission in 73, that one, Royal Institute of International Affairs, 1920, Club of Rome, the environmental manipulation arm of this network in 1968, Council on Foreign Relations 1921, and of course the United Nations after the Second World War, and the Bilderberg Group in 1954, officially anyway. And these work as one unit to manipulate this agenda of centralization of global power and the surveillance society. To show you where Mr. Change's policy provider is coming from, this is what Brzezinski wrote in 1970. The technotronic era involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled society. Such a society would be dominated by an elite unrestrained by traditional values. Soon it will be possible to assert almost continuous surveillance over every citizen and maintain up-to-date, complete files containing even the most personal information about the citizen. These files will be subject to instantaneous retrieval by the authorities. 1970. And it's happened. Why has it happened? Because it was the agenda way back then and before that it was going to happen. So we think Obama's in control as a president, but it goes through him to Brzezinski and many, many other people in the cartel around him, and to a person here called George Soros, the infamous global financier, who's been a major funder of his campaign. This might get controversial, I don't care, it needs saying. Around Obama is the most extraordinary network of Zionists. And this is a key one. He's White House Chief of Staff, Rahm Emanuel. He's an American citizen, but he served in the Israeli army. And his father was a member of a terrorist group called Irgun that helped to bomb Israel into existence in 1948. Now, one thing I want to make clear here, because this is lost in the translation on purpose. Zionism and Jewish people in general is not the same thing. What they want is for us to believe that So that in talking about Zionism, which is a political system and a political belief, is the same as talking about Jewish people. It is not. And how many have seen the number of Jewish people who oppose Zionism? When do you ever see that on the news? Who don't believe it's right and don't believe it's part of Jewish history and all the rest of it? Then it's never seen. What's sold to us is all Jewish people believe in Zionism. Rubbish. But because they've equated the two, then you get called racist when you talk about Zionism. I don't care. It needs saying, and I'm going to say it. If people don't like it, we're racist, they can bugger off. I'll tell you what Zionism is. It is a political system created not by Jewish people, but by the Rothschild family. Used to be the Bauer family, until it became the Rothschild banking dynasty, created by a guy called Mayer Anstal Rothschild in the 1700s, early 1800s. And they created Zionism, not for Jewish people and a homeland for Jewish people, but as a means of creating this agenda, by creating constant conflict in the Middle East. Now, they paid for the Knesset, the Israeli parliament building, built by the Rothschilds. Most of the early settlers from Europe into Israel, or Palestine as it was paid for by the Rothschilds, all part of the game. It was the Rothschilds who paid for the Israeli Tel Aviv Supreme Court building, which is full of esoteric symbols, Illuminati symbols. And no one has been had more in this scam than Jewish people in general, who've been led to believe that Zionism means one thing when it's going to hang them out to dry. In fact, Zionism and its political belief system under different names in the past, or no names, has hung Jewish people out to dry so many times through history to advance an agenda. These people couldn't give a damn about Jewish people. They just use them as a front to hide behind. Because the Rothschilds aren't Jewish in that sense at all. They're one of these hybrid bloodlines which infiltrate all peoples. So Rahm Emanuel is a massive manipulator and controls Obama's every thought. And alongside him in the White House is a guy called David Axelrod, another Zionist, extreme Zionists I'm talking here, who ran the entire election campaign for Obama and now dictates what appears in words on his autocue screens, his teleprompter screens. If you see Obama, right from the election campaign to today, he never looks straight there. He looks there, he looks there, he looks there, he looks there, whatever he's doing. And the reason he's doing that is because either side of him are teleprompter screens with the words that he's reading. And these words are written by, or written by, David Axelrod. He is so welded to these teleprompter screens, because he appears to be an intelligent man, but he's just an actor, that on St. Patrick's Day this year, Obama thanked himself for inviting everybody to a St. Patrick's Day gathering because someone else's script had been left on the teleprompter screens when he went up to read. He's now known by more and more people in America as the teleprompter president. And he's reading other people's words. Now, one of his major funders, who raised about $500,000 for his election campaign, is this man, Louis Sussman, extreme Zionist, who was vice president of Citigroup, which was Zionist, who was vice president of Citigroup, which was the major players in creating this economic crash in America. He's resigned about a month ago, and Puppet Obama has now appointed him, or is in the process of appointing him, United States ambassador to London. This is an Obama who said there will be no cronyism and giving good jobs for funding under my administration. So we're going to see no change in American support for the appalling events that happen in Gaza, the most crowded piece of land in the world. And in Israel now, we have a powder keg. We have real extremists in Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, Lieberman, the Foreign Minister, who's so far right he meets himself coming back, and this guy Barak, who's the Defense Minister and was through the last regime when they were bombing innocent people in Gaza from the sky and burning the bodies of children with white phosphorus. Now they want a battle, they want a fight, that's what they've been brought in for. And this guy, Martin van Creveld, who's a well-known and kind of top-notch military historian in Israel, said this: "We possess several hundred atomic warheads and rockets and can launch them at targets in all directions, perhaps even at Rome. Most European capitals are targets for our Air Force. We have the capability to take the world down with us, and I can assure you that that will happen before Israel goes under." How many times have you had a discussion or seen a discussion on television or anywhere about the fact that Israel has a massive arsenal of nuclear weapons? Oh, we talk about Iran. They've not even got them yet. Can't stop talking about it. Israel, we didn't even talk about it. No. Today, in fact, it was reported today, so it was yesterday, Barack Obama won't force Israel to admit it has nuclear weapons. Official. US President Barack Obama's administration will not force Israel to state publicly whether it has nuclear weapons, an Israeli official says. He said yesterday Washington would stick to a decades-old US policy of don't ask, don't tell. Everyone knows they've got them, no one talks about it. World's fair, eh? This is what Zionism is about. Palestinian agreement, are you kidding? Never wanted it. The Greenland is what Palestinians were settled in 1946, 1947, 1967, 2000, and it's got smaller since. Look at that strip of land. Most populated piece of land on the planet, Gaza. It's about driving people out, not making agreements with them. And all this stuff is all going on around this target area. What's that area like a hawk? Liar, liar. The great masses of the people will more easily fall victims to a big lie than a small one. Change, hope, something to believe in. This is my Obama rule. Ignore the words and watch the actions. And his actions could be George Bush over and over again. Oh, this shows that nothing's ever changed. There's Bono. There you go. There's Bono again. There you go. Nothing ever changes. Bono's got a shyster kind of magnetic attractor somewhere in his being. I don't know how he does it, but he has. So this is the secret agenda I was talking about right at the top. And the movie, and of course the Obama scenes in the movie were, crikey, really effective. This is how it's hidden. And it's come to money. Because the control of money and the creation of money is fundamental to controlling the people. And the Rothschilds are the biggest controllers of the money system on the planet. And what they've done brilliantly, at one time everyone knew that, but they've brilliantly hidden the extent of their power, which has expanded, not got smaller. But the perception of Rothschild control has disappeared compared with what it was when it was on public display. We don't ask big questions, so here's another big question. Where does money come from? What is money? And when you ask that question, you find that it's just a figment of our imagination. When you go into a bank and you ask for a loan, say $50,000, the bank doesn't print any money or move any precious metal anywhere. It just types into your account $50,000 and you start paying them interest on that money that has not, does not, and will never exist. Just credit, figures on a screen. Because the same network of families have controlled the politicians as have controlled the banking network, they have had legislation passed under something called fractional reserve lending that allows them to lend at least 10 times what they have on deposit. So every time you put $1 in a bank, you're giving them the right to lend at least 10, 9, 10. But it's far more than that in actual fact. That's the minimum it is. And so that's how money comes into circulation. But like I say, it's more than that. So if I get 20,000, say I go into a bank and I ask for $50,000, and they give me a check which represents figures on a screen that they've created out of nothing. I then go to another bank and I'll put it in another bank. That bank can now lend 10 times that $50,000, which has already been created out of nothing by Bank A. So now I write a check for, say, $20,000. I want to buy a car or something, and the person I buy the car off puts this $20,000 in his bank. This bank now can lend 10 times that $20,000, which comes from the $50,000 that this bank lent 10 times on, which was created out of nothing by Bank A. And so it goes on, round and round and round, as that non-existent money moves. And this is how the banking system works. And people are being thrown out of their homes for not paying back money that doesn't exist, never has existed, it's just figures on a screen. Third world debt is the same. And there's another thing. If you control the creation of money, then you control whether we have a boom or a bust. Because you have a boom when there's lots of money in circulation, which creates economic activity. People need to buy more things, therefore make more things, there's more jobs and all the rest of it. You push interest rates down and people take more and more loans out and they get more and more confident because the job's doing well, the company's doing well, so they have another holiday in a bigger house and they borrow more money, but that's not a problem, they say, because everything's going well. And then, at the optimum time, and we just had it, they pull money out of circulation. Just figures on a screen. They pull them out. They'll push interest rates up, or they'll stop issuing credit. And what they're doing is taking money out of circulation. As they do that, there's not the same amount of money for the same economic activity that was there before, so people can't buy more things, so more things are not made, and fewer things are made, so you have a depression. And the banks have been doing this for hundreds of years, throwing the fishing line out, more money in circulation, whoops, credit crunch, pulling it back in, and they're taking all the assets and what have you that they took in as collateral for the loans for non-existent money. And we've just had a massive version of that, and it's not finished yet by any means. This man, Alan Greenspan, all these illustrations like this, by the way, are by a man called David Deese, who's an American living in Sweden. He does fantastic political art. Alan Greenspan was head of the Federal Reserve in America from the Reagan-Bush administration through Father Bush, through the Clintons, through most of Boy Bush. And through that period, regulation, financial regulation, was just destroyed. And eventually a free-for-all took place, and the consequences of that came just after, just by coincidence, Greenspan left the Federal Reserve, which is a privately owned cartel of private banks, not the Central Bank of America as it's told. And so at the optimum time, towards the end of the Bush administration, they pulled the plug on this boom, this credit boom, which had been manipulated and engineered to get right out of hand. And people will say this, just quickly, people say, well, yeah, but all the bankers lose and all that stuff. Hold on, no they don't. Some bankers lose. The people that own certain banks or run certain banks lose, but the people that control the system, they don't lose. If you control the European Football Champions League, you don't care if Manchester United beat Barcelona or the other way round, because you own the game. You can't bloody lose. And these families own the game. They own the system. Therefore, if this bank goes down, that doesn't matter, because they own this bank and they own the system anyway, and it doesn't matter, because they own the system. And that's what we need to understand to appreciate why, if a few banks go down, it doesn't matter to these people. It can be very beneficial. So what they did was get people into debt while they were watching the football and having a beer. Oh, it's great. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? And oh, you go. And then they crashed it, and all hell's breaking loose in America. It's far. Oh, you go. And then they crashed it, and all hell's breaking loose in America. It's far worse. I was there for 2 months, early part of this year. I mean, there's tent cities in the bloody cities. You know, it's like you don't see it on the news very much, but there's tent cities. There's people who a few months ago, had what they call in America middle-class jobs. They were selling cars and doing all this stuff. Now they're living in tents. It's a catastrophe in America, and it's being hidden at the moment for reasons that I'll come to. So then they bring in this guy, Henry Paulson, who was the chief executive and head of Goldman Sachs until 2006, and then became Treasury Secretary, just in time to be the man that said the only way to react to this credit crunch and all the catastrophe caused by the banks is to borrow vast amounts of money that the taxpayer will have to repay and give it to the same bloody banks that caused the problem, including Goldman Sachs while he was chief executive. And so all this money's now been poured at the banks, trillions, and it has changed nothing. They're hiding the fact that it's changed nothing for now, but not for much longer. So then we had this difference. Here we have Bush justifying this throwing money at banks. I won't read it all because I want to get through, because time is short with all I want to get through. But one of the things he said to people on a television broadcast, if you own a business or a farm, you will find it harder and more expensive to get credit. More businesses would close their doors and millions of Americans could lose their jobs if we don't give trillions of dollars, billions in his case, it became trillions, to the very banks that have caused the problem. And then we had a change of presidency and everything changed. And Mr. Fake said, economists from across the spectrum have warned that if we don't act immediately, millions more jobs will be lost and the national unemployment rates will approach double digits. More people will lose their homes and their health care, and our nation will sink into a crisis that at some point we may be unable to reverse. Reptilian brain, oh, do it. Except that large numbers of Americans are not happy with them doing it, because times are changing and people are getting wise to a lot of this stuff. Again, be afraid. Be very afraid, because we've now invented the monster. It's called the credit crunch, and fearing your financial future. And so what does Obama do? He then brings in to solve the problem the very people who caused the problem. There's a cartel of private banks, like I said, which constitute the Federal Reserve, which is officially the Central Bank of America, but it's a private banks. The most important one and influential one is the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Decisions that they made fundamentally brought about this credit crunch that we're looking at. The head of the New York Federal Reserve Bank was Tim Geithner. What happened to him after the catastrophe he caused? Obama made him Treasury Secretary to decide how to react to the problem. He also brought in Larry Summers, who is the banker's boy, a man who in 1991 signed a memo when he was chief economist for the World Bank, advising the World Bank to dump its toxic materials in third world poor countries because the cost of compensation for the death and injury that would follow would be less than in a Western country. Obama made him one of his key economic people, and Paul Volcker, head of the Federal Reserve for a long time before Alan Greenspan. Here we go. Two for the money. Bankers' boys who helped to cause the problem are now solving the problem. And interestingly, a few days ago in Greece, there was the 2009 meeting of the Bilderberg Group, in secret, of course. And there, because there's people now that let certain real journalists have membership lists, or attendee lists. In Greece, at this secret Bilderberg meeting, was Tim Geithner, Treasury Secretary of America, Larry Summers, another major in the three of the economic team of Obama, Paul Volcker, the other one in Obama's economic team, and Robert Zoellick, head of the World Bank. Every single one of these people are Zionists. Just a coincidence? Nothing to worry about. And what they're doing, this is not America doing this. This is not America doing this. This is the cabal doing this through America. The idea is to destroy America, to use America to destroy America. Why? Because when you want a world government dictatorship, you cannot have any superpowers that have the military and financial might to say no to what you're saying must happen. Because the world government intends to have a world army, a world central bank, and a world currency eventually. And they'll manipulate the financial situation to bring that about, or try to. So what they need to do to take the superpower America out is they need to destroy it militarily, and they need to destroy it financially. And that's what they're doing. They're using it on their foreign excursions, and they're undermining its economy to destroy America. And it is going down the pan so fast. And this guy is being used as the front man. Nice smile. Oh, he's a nice man.
That's what's really happening. Behind the smile. Just hand it on. It wasn't change. There we go. Here's the ball. Make sure you keep the drugs running in Afghanistan, you know. Drop some my way. And what we saw was a presidential problem reaction solution. Bush was brought in to create problems, financial problems, overseas wars problems, and this guy was brought in as the solution to the problems. And as Adolf Hitler said, the great masses of the people will more easily fall victims to the big lie than the small one. So, I am someone to believe in. Hope, which is always in the future, never in the now. And so it never actually comes to fruition, but we can hope it does. And then you had change you can believe in. And none of these trite phrases like change were ever described in detail about what they actually meant. And what they created was a massive mind control coup on vast tracts of American people because they made Obama a blank screen, an empty suit on which people could project what they felt hope and change was, their version of it, onto him. And once he became president, of course, everything was changed. Make the lie big, make it simple, keep saying it, and eventually they will believe it. I love you, you love me, I will get you stuff for free. Oh, yay, Obama, you're such a star. I love this one. The wolf found that shepherd's clothing worked better. The peace president, first thing he did was agree the bombing of Pakistan. Same guy, all this going on with this spent uranium, depleted uranium. What does he do? Continues the bombing, increases the troops. Fraud, another puppet. Golden rule, big time. Ignore the words and watch the actions, because they're never the same. And just to show you nothing's changed, there we go. Good old Bono. Nothing's changed, we're fine. So, we have this projected agenda, and we're now at the point where they're trying to introduce finally that structure. World government, world central bank, world army, world currency eventually, and alongside it, of course, the Orwellian state that I've been writing about for the best part of 20 years. So now we're on this home straight to tyranny, as they want. And this is the guy they've chosen to be the front man for it, for most of the world, not least in America. He reads his speeches off these prompter boards, speeches written and overseen by David Axelrod, Rothschild Zionist. And I don't know if you've ever been, that says teleprompter. Without it, you're a stuttering idiot. I don't know if you've ever been on YouTube and seen examples of Obama when the teleprompter falls down, stops working. He doesn't know where his next word's coming from. And people have perceived Obama as an intelligent man. This says delusion, assuming a level of knowledge that isn't there. Because what they're doing is they're comparing Obama with Bush. And, you know, as the saying goes, slow horses look fast when they're running past trees. He's not intelligent at all. He's an actor. And what we have is a secret agenda to introduce this police state and centralized control. And this is the movie designed to bring the secret agenda into being through legislation and change in society without people realizing that that exists. That's why the mainstream media is a movie. I call journalists movie correspondents. That's what they are, mostly. And so when you have this situation with Obama, it's like the Pied Piper. Change, change. The election of Obama was a massive mind control operation. This says Tony Blair. He's the black Tony Blair. He's the white Obama. Will you lie first, Tony, or shall I? Oh, after you, Barack. These people lie by reflex action. It's part of their daily life. And while Obama was claimed to be the people's man, his major funder was Goldman Sachs and a stream of Wall Street names. They're going to vote for someone who's going to be for the people. This is why Obama has been connected to so many rogues and people like this guy, Tony Resco, ended up in jail for fraud. He was responsible for so much of Obama's political career. And Obama's two close manipulators and controllers also are Soros and this guy, Zbigniew Brzezinski, the National Security Advisor to Jimmy Carter. Brzezinski, like I said earlier, has been mentoring and bringing him through since at least the 1980s to become president at this time, all orchestrated. And this is a book that Brzezinski wrote in 1970. What's that? 40 years ago. In which he said this, predicting the future. Predicting the future, explaining the future he knew was coming. The technotronic era involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled society. Such a society would be dominated by an elite unrestrained by traditional values. Soon it will be possible to assert almost continuous surveillance over every citizen and maintain up-to-date complete files containing even the most personal information about the citizen. These files will be subject to instantaneous retrieval by the authorities. And he knew, because he's an insider, Brzezinski. That's why he's on Obama's shoulder. He, along with this man, David Rockefeller, created in 1973 an organization called the Trilateral Commission. This is part of a network of organizations controlled by a secret society in London called the Round Table, or Britain anyway, England. The first one was the Royal Institute of International Affairs, 1921. Then came the Council on Foreign Relations in America, 1921. That was 1920. Then came the United Nations after the Second World War. Then came the Bilderberg Group, 1954. There was the Club of Rome in 1968. That was created to use the environment as a means of controlling the people. And the Trilateral Commission of Brzezinski and Rockefeller came in 1973. And these work as one unit to push this agenda forward. And the number of politicians that are members of these groups is extraordinary. Now, what Brzezinski talks about, and if Brzezinski talks about it, it's the agenda, is something called Eurasia. And he says that if you control the area known as Eurasia, you control the world, and that they must get control of Eurasia. Now, this is a key part of Eurasia, which goes from basically Europe across to China and into China. And it's very interesting because they want to control this area, for instance, all the way to China. So you've got Georgia in Eurasia, you've got the Ukraine in Eurasia, which were these people's revolutions, it says here. You've got Kyrgyzstan, where they've done the same twice. And then over here is Israel, which they control. They're now demonizing Syria because they want that. They're already in Iraq. They're already in Afghanistan. And now they're destabilizing in so many ways Pakistan, which takes them right to the Chinese border. There's one major country in the way of that whole deal, and that's this one. And that's why they want Iran. It's nothing to do with nuclear bloody weapons. It's finding an excuse to take that so that they virtually complete the job, apart from Syria, of taking that whole area of what Brzezinski says you need to control if you're going to control the planet. And you're just ticking them off. You carry that map around with you and watch the television news, you're going to see them coming up. And what they're doing, for instance, America is being demonized for doing all this, but what they're doing is destroying America. They're using America to push this on, but the idea is to destroy it for this reason. If you want a world government with total control of the planet, you cannot have superpowers who have the economic and military might to say no to you. So we're in the process of destabilizing and bringing down America militarily and economically to absorb it into this global system. And we're going to see events unfold which are going to bring China and Russia into this too, because
anything that's powerful enough to say no to the world government is designed to be undermined and absorbed. And by the way, China society is the blueprint for global society. They've been developing that around closed doors. That's why there's so many connections between top American politicians like the Bush family and Kissinger and China. And so the time's running out for America. Once it's done its job of being used, they'll destroy it as the superpower it is now. And it's being done under the, if you like, the puppet period of Obama, who's really just a puppet, just a puppet. And he's there to smile and sell tyranny and control with a smiling face. But that's what's behind it. And you could put communism there too. Just the face to hide the real face that's going on. That's why nothing's changed. Do you remember Guantanamo Bay was going to be closed? Maybe he forgot. He's got a lot on his mind. Nothing's changed since one replaced the other. Nothing's changed. It's got worse in Afghanistan. This says they think he cares about them. What we're looking at is presidential problem, reaction, solution. And they played the American people like a violin. Adolf Hitler said, the great masses of the people will more easily fall victims to a big lie than a small one. What they did with Bush, the Bush period, was they created lots of problems, not least the economic crash right at the end in September 2008, and also the invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq. And so by the time we got to the next election with this guy, people are sick of it. It's like, do something. And so he was sold as the solution to the problem. And all he did for nearly a year was say trigger words, meaningless words like change, hope, and something to believe in. The idea was that he never ever, and he didn't, specify what he meant by that in detail. Because the idea was it was a mass mind control operation. You have to watch this in elections because it goes on in all countries. They just did a major job in America this time. The idea was for him to become an empty screen on which the population projected what they believed was change, hope, and something to believe in. He became all things to all people. That was the idea. Don't be specific until you get in. As Adolf Hitler said, make the lie big, make it simple, keep saying it, and eventually they will believe it. Obama, make the lie big, make it simple, keep saying it, and eventually they will believe it. Politics worldwide is getting like this now. Just trite phrases that mean nothing. I love you, you love me, I will get you stuff for free. Oh, thank you. We can believe in that. I found this, I think, sums up Obama. The wolf found that shepherd's clothing worked even better. And so we have a man of President Peace whose first act in office was to authorize the bombing of Pakistan and has vastly increased the military operation in Afghanistan, says he's pulled out of Iraq, just changed the name, 50,000 troops still there. Not a word from him about the horrors in Iraq and Afghanistan of spent nuclear fuel or spent nuclear material in the bombs and weapons that they've dropped on Iraq, which is having horrendous birth effects and other effects. The man is a complete fraud, and fortunately, his honeymoon period has not been anything like as long as it promised to be. He's just another puppet of the system, and he's just there to push it on while appearing to be different. The Obama rule, ignore the words and watch the actions. And when you watch the actions, woo. Just to show you nothing's changed, by the way, this is Bush, and here's Obama. You know, they say if you want to know what's going on, follow the money. I think you follow the Bono. I think you follow the Bono. Look at him. He's everywhere. All these people involved, Bono's shaking hands with them. I don't know. So anyway, we've been moving around down this timeline of the control, and they're coming into the point where they want to introduce what they've been working towards, this structure. That's what's unfolding now. And to underpin this control system, they're bringing in this Orwellian global state, this police state. And this is not for the masses, because the masses are no problem unless they wake up and see what's going on. This control system is for those who have woken up and are waking up to see what they couldn't see before and realize what's going on. In Britain, you, on an average day, walking through a town or city, will be seen by 300 and growing security cameras. They've now got satellite technology and other technology which can take your number plate and put it through a computer and get everything there is to know about you as you go along the road. The satellite system is much further advanced than we're given allowed to know. They're bringing in these systems of all-body scanners. Some people say it'll be terrible, you know, people will see my naked body. What I say is, if people see my naked body, it serves them right. That's what I say. But the radiation they give off is something different. And if you are involved in paedophile rings, what better than this system? Here's another one, Kissinger. We're seeing again, I've not been in Czech Republic long enough to comment on this. I'm talking about what I'm seeing in country after country, including my own in America, where the police are becoming more and more militarized. They're becoming an arm of the military. This is happening everywhere that I go. And we're giving policemen in places like America and other European countries and Britain these tasers, which give off 55,000 volts and have killed many people around the world, not least people with heart conditions and stuff. And people